10 Forgotten Black American Stories That Deserve a Movie. Number 10. She hid in a crawlspace for 7 years to escape slavery. She was hunted, not for escape, but for control. Harriet Jacobs was born into slavery in 1813. Her master didn't want her in the fields, he wanted to own her body. Relentlessly pursued, threatened, and harassed, Harriet refused to become his property in every way, so she vanished, into a crawlspace. For 7 years, she hid in an attic barely 9 feet long and 3 feet high. No light, no heat, no freedom, just hope. She couldn't stand upright, could barely move. But from that space she watched her children grow, never revealing herself, never giving in. Eventually she escaped north, and she didn't stay silent. In 1861 she published Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, exposing the brutal truths of slavery from a woman's perspective, the abuse, the terror, and the resistance. Harriet Jacobs didn't just survive, she wrote herself into history, a mother, a fugitive, an abolitionist, and a voice that slavery could not silence. Number 9. Beaten for reading, then he changed America. He was born into slavery, torn from his mother, forbidden to read and beaten for trying, but Frederick Douglass refused to be broken. He secretly taught himself to read and write, knowing that knowledge was power. He tried to escape more than once, and failed. But he never gave up. On September 3, 1838, disguised as a sailor, he boarded a train in Baltimore, making it to New York. But he didn't just run to freedom. He turned around and fought for others still in chains. Once free, he became a voice that thundered through America. His speeches exposed the cruelty of slavery, his words shook presidents, his autobiography sold thousands of copies, giving a face to the enslaved. He met with Lincoln, advised presidents, demanded justice for black Americans, both enslaved and free, and he never stopped using his pen and voice as weapons of truth. From slave to statesman, from bondage to the White House, Frederick Douglass didn't just escape, he became a legend. Number 8. The Real Lone Ranger. This man was born into slavery, forced to serve, forbidden to read, and owned like property. His name, Bass Reeves. But fate had something else in store. During the Civil War, he escaped into Indian Territory, learning languages, survival skills, and how to handle a rifle with deadly precision. When slavery ended, Bass didn't disappear into obscurity. He became a U.S. Deputy Marshal, one of the first black lawmen west of the Mississippi. He arrested over 3,000 criminals during his career, bringing in murderers, thieves, and gang leaders, many of them white, without ever being wounded in a gunfight. He rode with 2 Colt pistols on his hips, knew how to track a man for miles, and often used disguises to outsmart his targets. Despite the danger, Bass never backed down. He even had to arrest his own son for murder, and did it with the same iron will. A lawman feared by outlaws, respected by all, and the inspiration behind the legend of the Lone Ranger. Number 7. He stole a Confederate ship and became a congressman. He was born into slavery, but refused to stay in chains. Robert Smalls was forced to work on the Confederate warship planner during the Civil War, learning every route, signal, and guard routine. Then, one foggy night in 1862, with the white officers ashore, he made his move. Wearing the captain's coat and hat, Smalls calmly steered the ship past 5 Confederate checkpoints, saluting like a pro, while his family and other enslaved crew members hid below deck. Once clear, he raised a white bedsheet as a surrender flag and delivered the planter, loaded with cannons and military secrets, straight to the Union Navy. He was 23 years old. Smalls didn't stop there. He went on to pilot Union warships, meet with President Lincoln, and become one of the first black men elected to U.S. Congress. Robert Smalls didn't just escape slavery, he outsmarted the Confederacy, and rewrote his destiny. Number 6. The boxer framed for murder. He was a rising star in the boxing ring, fast, fearless, and feared. Rubin "Hurricane" Carter was a top middleweight contender in the 1960s, known for knocking opponents out cold. But his greatest fight wasn't in the ring, it was for his freedom. In 1966, Carter was wrongly convicted of a triple homicide in New Jersey. No weapon, no motive, just a flawed lineup and racism. He was sentenced to life in prison, stripped of everything. But he refused to be broken. From behind bars, he wrote his autobiography The 16th Round and became a symbol of injustice. His story spread across the world, inspiring Bob Dylan's powerful song Hurricane, and decades later, a film starring Denzel Washington. After nearly 20 years behind bars, his conviction was finally overturned. The judge declared it based on racism rather than reason. Rubin Carter never got his prime back, but he got his name back, a fighter in every sense who battled the system and won. Number 5. He mailed himself to freedom. He was born into slavery, but wait until you hear how he escaped. In 1849, at age 33, Henry Brown had seen too much. His wife and children sold off, his freedom always out of reach. So, he did the unthinkable. With the help of a friend, Henry built a crate, just big enough for one man. Armed with a single biscuit, a water flask, and an unwavering will, he mailed himself from Virginia to Philadelphia. Sealed tight, no air holes, no way out. Just 27 hours of silence, darkness, and hope. At one point the box was flipped upside down. He nearly passed out. But he stayed still. When the crate was finally opened, Henry stood up and said, "How do you do, gentlemen?" He became a free man, an abolitionist, and a stage magician, but he never forgot the box that delivered his freedom. They tried to break him. Instead, he broke the system by packing himself up and shipping slavery out. Number 4. 45 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. This man lost everything for a crime he didn't commit. At just 26 years old, Richard Phillips was arrested for a 1971 murder in Detroit. There was no physical evidence, just a false testimony, and it cost him 45 years of his life. He spent decade after decade behind bars, maintaining his innocence. He missed the birth of his grandchildren, lost his marriage, watched the world change from behind concrete walls. But he never gave up. In 2014, a witness finally came forward, admitting he had lied, and in 2018 Phillips was exonerated. By then, he was 72. The longest-serving wrongfully convicted inmate in U.S. history. He walked out of prison with nothing but hope. He started painting, selling his art to survive, not bitter, not broken, just free, and determined to live the life that was stolen from him. Number 3. The Underground Railroad's greatest conductor. She was born into chains, but refused to live in them. She suffered a head injury as a child that caused lifelong seizures and visions, but she believed those visions were divine guidance. Harriet Tubman was enslaved, beaten, and nearly killed. But she didn't break. In 1849 she escaped, and then she went back. Again and again, she returned to the South, risking death each time, not to free herself, but to free others. Armed with nothing but courage and faith, she led more than 70 people to freedom using the Underground Railroad, a secret network of routes and safe houses. But she didn't stop there. During the Civil War, Harriet became a spy for the Union Army. She gathered intel, led raids, and helped liberate hundreds more, this time in uniform. She never lost a passenger, never backed down, and never gave in to fear. They called her Moses, not just for leading her people, but for showing the world what resistance looked like. Harriet Tubman wasn't just a conductor of freedom, she was a force of nature that slavery couldn't stop. Number 2. From paralyzed by polio to Olympic champion. She was born weighing just 4.5 pounds, premature, sickly, and unwanted by the odds. As a child, Wilma Rudolph contracted polio, leaving her paralyzed in one leg. Doctors told her she'd never walk again, but her mother refused to accept that fate. She massaged Wilma's leg daily, and little by little, Wilma began to move. By age 12, she shed her leg brace and ran, not just walked, ran faster than anyone thought possible. Through high school and college, she shattered records on the track. And in 1960, at the Rome Olympics, the world watched her make history. Wilma won 3 gold medals in a single games, becoming the fastest woman alive and the first American woman to achieve such a feat in track and field. But she didn't stop there. Wilma used her fame to speak out against racism and injustice, refusing to attend segregated events, even in her own honor. From paralyzed child to Olympic legend, Wilma Rudolph didn't just beat the odds, she rewrote them. Number 1. A sick white man and his slave. This couple didn't just escape slavery, they outsmarted an entire system built to keep them captive. William and Ellen Craft were married, but enslaved. Ellen was light-skinned enough to pass as white, so they came up with a plan so bold it sounded impossible. She disguised herself as a sick, wealthy white man, arm in a sling, face wrapped in bandages. William played the role of her attentive slave. In December 1848, they boarded trains, stayed in hotels, and traveled openly through the South, riding straight past danger. Every mile was a risk. One wrong word, one curious glance, and they'd be torn apart. But they stayed in character and kept moving. After 4 tense days, they reached Philadelphia, free. But their story didn't end there. They became outspoken abolitionists, fighting to end the system that once tried to own them. William and Ellen Craft didn't just run, they performed their freedom and won.